Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lore Week. I am your host, the Lore Runner, and I am here to talk to you about video games, and I guess some other things that are, tangentially related to video games. A little bit, they're not really related to video games. Geek interests? Something like that, I don't know. Point being, that this, I don't think I like this coat. It's very uncomfortable compared to the other one. Just trying it out, trying out a different style, and this thing is astonishingly uncomfortable. In fact, I think that's just weird. Whatever. Good morning, Blazer. No, this is a trench coat, just like the other thing's a trench coat. Good morning, Sierra Mike. I assume you mean Doom64, but either way, thank you very much, sir. Very much obliged. I appreciate the sub. Thank you. I'll put that towards Doom64. A fedora. Whoops. Oh my god, I can't spell Sierra Mike. 091. There we go. I kept trying to spell Sierra Mike as Doom64. It wasn't working out all that well. Anywho. Listen, Plutonia. I was thinking, have you heard about the Vault program? Maybe you should be joining me in Vault 101. No, unfortunately I don't actually have a fedora, so I can't actually use that. This is going to be relatively short. I have to talk about something relatively important for the show, and then we're going to cover a couple brief things and the EA show, and that's it. Speaking of which, for those of you who didn't notice it, I just want to give some little historic announcement. For those of you not aware, I actually have a spreadsheet, which is viewable to the public, where I keep track of the duration of runs that we've done. Just to keep track, just for the sake of quantifying, because I like quantifying. And I was looking at it, and the World of Warcraft lore run, not counting Legion, so vanilla up, BC up to Warlords, was 434 hours. Easily the longest run I've ever done, right? But immediately following that, we have the Final Fantasy lore run remake. That was basically all the FFs, including Crisis Core and the 13s and Type 0 and Tactics. All that stuff. All of that was 242 hours. To put that a little bit of perspective there. My third longest run I have ever done is one game, and that's Persona 5. By itself. Just putting that into some perspective. Managed to beat out the Elder Scrolls lore run, Witcher 3 Plus expansions, the Assassin's Creed lore run, the Neverwinter Nights lore run, the WoW Legion lore run, the Grand Theft Auto HD lore run, and the Star Trek Online lore run. Oh, it's mostly padding. 120 hours, almost to the dot. Loner. Or not loner, excuse me, if and but. It is done. We finished it yesterday. Whew. Thank God we're done with that game. No offense to people who like that game, but thank God we're done with that game. And thank you very much, Zalog. Very much obliged and appreciate, as usual. Thank you. I am very strongly considering putting future Persona games on the Forbidden List. What did I think of it? Plus 10, plus 2. If you want more details, you're going to have to go watch the VOD. So, let's talk about show news. I guess that's kind of show news. It already has gotten my coffee tag. If you check the review list, you'll notice it already has the coffee tag as of right now. Anyway, so moving on from Persona, I can see why people like it. I don't. Let's talk about a couple things now. I swear this is actually unrelated, but this is going to sound related. So anybody who's been paying attention to the website may or may not notice that there's a little bit of a change. Obviously, the order of games has been changed because of because of real life circumstances. But the other real problem is that I was sitting down staring at this spreadsheet. Now, you guys probably don't know this, but I actually put a fairly large amount of time and effort and thought into the function of my show. And you're probably thinking, huh? Actually, the vault's still there. There's just not a link to it, because there's no reason for there to be a link to it. If you really need a link, you can just go to it manually or type vault into the Twitch chat and you'll get it there. But it's not really necessary. The vault is going to be going away soon, so there's no real reason to keep it there on the main page anymore. But no, the real thing is... Oh, God, where do I even start? So, I keep track of how many people donate how much to what as a bit of a curve as far as information and graphing. And I have been paying a fairly large amount... I know, right? I've been paying a fairly large amount of attention to trends. Yes, I did, Zalog. To trends and towards perspective and exactly how things are happening and blah blah frickin' blue. And as a direct consequence of that, I could pretty well predict with high certainty how runs get funded at this point. There are some outlier exceptions, but for the most part, everything has followed the pattern. So that's given me some valuable data. And this is going back months and months at this point, so it's been a consistent curve, even with the the pandemic and recent problems. That's still a consistent curve. So having looked at that, I was like, okay, no problem, because the core formula, and we were going to shift to this, was we were no longer going to be bundling games together, and that's still probably going to be a thing. No more game bundles. If you want me to run Mega Man 8, you're going to have to donate for Mega Man 8, not Mega Man 8 and 9 and 10 and 12 and 13 and 18 and 72. The catch, though... So, hang on, rewind a second. Because based on my own projections and formulas, that system is going to work, because what it's going to ensure is a more or less continuous availability of slots in a much more limited slot system, which is what we're going to be using, in order to cycle games through the list more rapidly. Right now we're in lockdown on the list. You guys know this. And that's a state I'd like to avoid as much as possible with regards to going forward. And I need to put this sub toward VTMB2. Thank you very, very much, Scottish Warrior. Appreciate it as always, sir. Thank you. But yeah, the idea is to keep the flow of games going and to keep things going. Blah, blah. You get the idea. Now, we do need to talk about a few specific things going forward. So the first and most obvious change, a couple of people did notice. Stop subbing! A couple of people did actually notice this over the week, because we actually I made this change on the website like last Tuesday. But, so thank you for all of you who actually paid attention and noticed that. You make me feel better about myself. Thank you very much, Reaver. Very much appreciate the sub. Thank you. If you know where you want to put that, please let me know. That's kind of the idea. Yeah, exactly, Takoida. Because we do have that precedent already set. Like, VTMB1 is already funded and waiting on VTMB2, just to use an example of that. Because the things in the waiting category don't count towards the total, unless that gets ridiculous, and that's we're kind of adopting a wait-and-see approach with that. Right now, that list is actually reasonably large, but that's because it's almost entirely games that aren't out yet. Anyways, so there are two categories of runs now, long and normal. Now, again, several of you noticed this. Thank you for noticing it. You are awesome. Originally, oh my god. Originally, I wasn't even going to do this, and I actually debated this quite some time, because I debate everything quite some time. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Botland. Very much appreciate the sub. I put that towards dealer's choice. Because there's a logic to not limiting a run based on time and based on relevance of how long a particular game is. Because basically the law of averages kind of works out in the end. However, the thing is... I've never really looked at the funding list as you guys directly paying for runs, which I suppose could be a flaw in my mentality. The reason I'll allow you to do this is to try and show support of a specific run, for you guys to select the content. But the idea I've always had in mind is very simply that the overwhelming majority of you are supporting the show. That you are not directly buying a run of such and such from me. That's more like you're supporting the show, and I'd like to see such and such, which is a very important distinction, especially economically. That's correct, if and but. I'm going to have to set up a completely separate sorting function for that. And by I mean third, because I have no idea how to do that. So right now it's not sortable. So, all of that lines up, and I've lost my trail of that. People keep subbing and distracting me. The bottom line is, I started looking at it as an algorithm of time. Because, and this was, I was reminded of this because I was actually thinking about and designing more aspects of the economy of the empire, of all things. And as I was doing so, one of the most key and predominant things that kept coming up is the usage of time as a method, or a methodology, or however you want to think of that, of currency. And this is something that comes up in Star Trek, too, which is actually what prompted this initially. And the harsh reality is that a game that takes, 100 hours to go through should probably... It's actually... I was thinking of this in the inverse. A game that takes 5 hours to go through probably shouldn't be, require the same priority as a game that takes 100 hours to go through. Not to... Again, I swear this is unrelated to Persona 5, but obviously... Persona 5 is an excellent example of this, because the amount of priority that was put towards Persona 5 is the exact same amount of priority as that's going to, say, Castlevania Shoten. Well, no more. The point of the long list is exactly what it sounds like. Now, I am still experimenting with the amount of priority required to make a run happen. That's something that I'm still paying attention to very carefully. Like I said, I've been paying attention to trends. And who is donating, how many people are donating how much to what at what time. But at any given point in time, that the amount of priority that is required for a run to be funded can and probably will change. At the moment, it's a very simple equation. The long stuff requires flat double what the non-long stuff requires in order to be funded. Pretty simple. Now, Mike Romano says, you don't know how long the run's going to take me, and you're absolutely right. However, I can estimate. And that's what I did. Because it's not that hard to estimate, at least within a range of, say, about 20 hours. So, for example, you look at the list here, and we've got, like, Mega Man X1 through 3. That's going to take me, like, 2 days. Tales from the Borderlands, that's going to be, like, a day and a half. Plague Tale Innocence, that's going to be, like, a day and a half. Super Mario Bros. 2 and 3, that'll be a day. Time Spinner won't be long. VTMB 2, don't know. It's not out yet. Last of Us 2 will not be long. That's like a 20-hour game, etc., 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 right? It's pretty easy to eyeball it, Mike Romano. Especially if you scroll down to the long list and you see games like Ocarina and Majora. So that combined. Heroes of Might and Magic 5, Xenogears, Trails in the Sky 2, Legend of Legaia. You'll notice a lot of RPGs down here. The other Fire Emblem Three Houses runs, Neo, Path of Radiance, Dragon's Dogma, Final Fantasy XIV, Heavensward, all these things are going to be long runs. It is not that hard to lump them into that category. What I've generally been doing, and I've already actually run into this, is if I see a run that's kind of like halfway-ish, like kind of leaning one way or the other, it depends on the specific run at that point. It's like, well, okay. I mean, does this actually qualify as a game? I mean, the time to beat on timetobeat.com is like 28 hours, so, we'll lean that one towards short. Because, again, part of the point of the long thing isn't really to have it a hard and codified amount of time, since that's impossible. I actually functionally cannot predict that. But, I can roughly estimate within a 20-hour reach, which is what I've been doing. That is entirely possible, Takoida. And I know some people would be very happy about that. I would not be one of them, for the record. I'm not super worried about that, though. Not really. Not with the list we've got right now. So that's it. I wanted to talk about that. I actually do have another show thing related that I want to talk about. And... no. Mr. Red, absolutely not. No. I have no idea on Falkenstein. You'll have to ask Kira White Noise. I could look it up, but I don't remember. I think I own it on GOG. Hang on, I'll look it up on GOG. Give me a second. I thought about that in Oceans, but that requires knowing the actual exact time a game is going to take, which I don't. If I knew to the hour the exact amount of time any run would take for me to play through on stream, then I could easily and effortlessly line that up. And of course, use the schedule and all that. But believe it or not, I am not omniscient. I know it's shocking. Hang on just a second. Albion, here it is, Albion. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, Blue Byte Software. There it is, Blue Byte Software. There you go. Just for you, Von Falkenstein. I know. Shocking. Last of Us 2 is not on the Forbidden list. If it was, it wouldn't be funded. I am not looking forward to WoW Shadowlands, no. I could, Takoida? One of the things that I usually do when it comes... So I'm going to go ahead and be honest with you. You may have noticed the actual list has changed a little bit as far as the upcoming list. As far as what we're going to be streaming next. One of the most obvious things I tend to do, one of the most overt things I tend to do, is I try to group them in ways that make sense to me. The most obvious thing is varying up console and PC stuff. So, for example, we're going to be going through... That looks like the wrong list. No, that's right. So we're going to be at KOTOR 2. That's going to be starting next week. And then we're going to be going through Tor. That's starting on the 29th, no matter what. Then we're switching over to Soten, Torna, Trials of Mana, Shantae, and all of that's going to be console. And that's a decent chunk of console games that we'll be pushing through before we switch back to working on PC stuff that we'll be streaming on the PC in one manner or the other. So I tend to group it up back because I have to literally physically shuffle around hardware in order to switch between console and PC streaming. But I also try to vary it up a little bit. I will freely admit, if I'm being completely honest, I am very, very selfish in how I line up the runs because my most common thing is I tend to put in things. I haven't been in love with WoW since BFA, Reaver. WoW's just kind of there. Because I look at it and I think, well, I want to get this run over with and this run over with, and I'm worried about this run, and I know this is going to be a long run, so we'll put those to the top of the list. And then immediately after that, I'll schedule some runs I'm actually looking forward to and runs I really want to play and want to go through in order to kind of recover from. And that's usually how I tend to stagger the list. So, this is all... I can't believe I'm still answering Takoida's question. Point being, there is a method to my madness, I swear. And it doesn't make sense to anyone else in the world, and that's totally fine. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the floodgates. Now, the floodgates will be opening in August. For those of you who have not heard this news yet, they will be allowed for movies only. That's it. Only movies. Period. No games. Just hit refresh, Retro. It's just caching. Now, we're going to be having less slots than usual. In fact, we're only going to be having 25 slots for the next year's movie ruminations. And I'm still... No idea, Sierra Mike. I'm still kind of debating exactly how we're going to approach... So what I've been trying to think about is the exact method I could use in order to get people who are not... No, I still have to do both Star Trek shows next time. The people who are not Patreon supporters and getting them involved at the floodgates. And to date, I have not come up with a good method to do that, because the problem is there's just no good method for people to donate and also keep track of them to then also vote while at the same time showing financial interest in the show. It's not a thing. It's not the same as a run. Because the only way to do that would be to say, okay, if you can, I thought about this, during August you can donate for a movie rumination. But the problem is, if we did that, what would happen is the first 25 would get in. The first 25 donations of any amount whatsoever would lock in the 25, and then that would be the end of it. There's no voting at that point. So what we're probably going to do is we're probably going to make it so it's just Patreon only. Which is not something I'm particularly happy about, but I also don't really see another way around. So, in August, the floodgates will open up on Patreon for patrons only, because, you know, practicality. And you'll be able to nominate. I'm going to reduce the nomination time substantially, by half, actually. You'll have 2 weeks to nominate and 2 weeks to vote, and that'll go across August. And then we're going to stop streaming in October. And we're going to remain not streaming in October until we're done with the YouTube side of things. I don't 100% know how long that will take. Probably at least a month. Because I have to record a year's worth of videos. But as of the moment, that's how that's going to line up. We'll see how that actually is practically when we get to August, which is only a few months from now. Is there a limited number of nominations? Yes, I will actually talk about that when I put out the actual video or post announcing the floodgates have opened. You'll be able to nominate one thing, one movie. Not a movie series, just one movie. You may vote for 2. And that's how we did it last year, and that actually worked out very well. And that's how we'll be doing it this year. I don't know, Retro Justice. I don't believe you. I think you're pure evil. But I will put that towards Divinity Original Sin 2. Can you make it so other people can vote as well? Not really, no. I don't have a really good functional method to make that happen. Not in any organized manner. The only possible way I could make that happen is if I basically ensured people wouldn't be involved. Or gave you guys like one lore week to be like, alright guys, today you can vote, something like that. Which I guess I could do. It's not a terrible idea. I guess that would be 2 lore weeks, because of the 2 weeks that you have to vote. The other problem with that, though, is I'd have to keep track of who has voted for what and how, which, I guess I could do that. I'll think about it. Leaning towards no, Mike Romano. Just to be honest. I have not collected ships in a bottle. No. So that's the news about the list. That's the news about the floodgates. And I think that's it. Let me double check my notes. But I think that's all I wanted to talk about. Yep, nope, we're good. I am hopeful that splitting the list up into long runs and short runs is going to help us to have a little less of a backlog and to have a little less of the problems that we've been having nonstop. It is also possible I just need to increase the amount of priority needed for runs in general, because you guys are nuts and insane and awesome. So, next thing I want to talk about, let's get to random news. I only have a few tidbits this week. In fact, this is a pretty news-dry week. Next week promises to be a little busier. Next week we've got the Developer Showcase, which is tomorrow, I believe? Yep, tomorrow. We've got the New Game Expo, which is going to be, a bunch of obvious stuff. Avengers is going to have their showcasing on the 24th. Cyberpunk is going to be showing their stuff off on the 25th. And there's a Japanese summit that's happening on the 27th. So, hopefully we'll have some news with that regards. With regards to news that happened this last week, Ian Holm died. Which really sucks. I imagine he is well known in geek circles for The Hobbit, but he was a good actor and he was awesome, and that sucks. Cyberpunk got delayed again, and allow me to be probably the only person in the world who's not happy about that. And you're probably thinking, Lore, I didn't realize you were super excited to play Cyberpunk. I'm not. I don't care when it comes out. I know we've talked about this before. It's not that I'm not hyped, or hoiped, actually. It's just that at this point in my life, the game will come out at some point, and then I'll play it when it comes out, and then I will enjoy it. I don't need it to come out today. I can wait. You know, I've got other things to deal with right now. Patience, right? I'm still excited for it. But it being delayed? No. That's not why I'm upset about it being delayed. The reason I'm upset about it being delayed is in the announcement about delaying it, not once did they mention anything whatsoever about, we've decided to work our employees a little bit less, or we're trying to make it so that we're reducing the stress in the office, or in order to help, our employees' life cycle, or anything else they could have said. Anything else they could have said whatsoever in order to showcase that they were delaying the game in order to put a little bit less pressure and work on its employees would be awesome. Especially if they meant it. And you can't tell me, especially now, that CD Projekt Red couldn't get away with that. But instead, what it is, well, the game's not polished enough yet, so we need to put more work into it. Which means another 2 months, I think. Hang on, I wrote down the new date. I think it's November 19th. Yeah. So yeah, about a little under 2 months more of probably crunch time. Now I say probably. I don't actually know if it's actually going to be crunch time. But the thing is, the fact that their announcement only spoke about work on the game and not about the employees, that worries me. And that's not the first red flag that's shown up, as Max Time put it out in chat. That's more like the 15th red flag that's shown up. So yeah, not happy about that. Especially since I know exactly what that feels like. And if any of you, am I not thinking it's going to be good? I don't care about the quality of the game as much as I care about the quality of life for the workers, Mike Romano. So I have no idea if the game's going to be any good or bad. And I don't care. I'll get there when I get there. Have you ever been on a project? This has actually happened to me several times. And you're pushing and you're working overtime. You're trying to get it done. And you're told, okay, so hang on. We've moved the goalposts a bit. So now you're going to have to keep working under the exact same work schedule. But also we need you to do this and this and this as well. Like, anybody ever gone through that? Because I have. More than once. It's a really soul-crushing feeling, actually. And it's one of the reasons I was looking at that and just being like, wow. That's horrible. We'll see. I, of course, don't know, and it's not like I can do anything about it whatsoever anyways. Moving on. Pokemon Snap is getting a sequel, which I don't really know much about it. In fact, I was having trouble finding any concrete information about it, but then again, I didn't have a lot of time to look at the news this week, so I apologize for that. Nevertheless, they're getting a new Pokemon Snap game. You're probably thinking, Lore, why are you so ambivalent about this? I actually tried to play the original Pokemon Snap, and I didn't like it. I'm guessing I was just missing something, because I was just incredibly uninvested in the game and was not getting into it at all. I know a lot of people are excited about this, so that's awesome. And, people getting games that they like is awesome, so I'm happy about that. Speaking of new games, Kingdom Hearts is getting a Theatrhythm game. I was asked to give my opinion on this, and I really only have two things to say about this. Thing number one, it's about frickin' time we're getting some Kairi story. Come on, it's not that hard. Second thing, Theatrhythm is a game that came out on the 3DS, which was kind of crap. I mean, it was okay, but it was ultimately pretty basic. Theatrhythm Full Curtain, which is the extended edition or whatever, was a much better game. Added a lot more in terms of functionality, in terms of songs, in terms of backdrops and visual presentation and modes of play, and it was a much better game across the board. In many ways, Theatrhythm felt like a prototype for Theatrhythm, Full Curtain or Final Curtain, whatever it was called. Having said that, I am hopeful that this will be more of the latter than the former, that they have already learned the lessons from Theatrhythm, and can then apply that in order to make this Kingdom Hearts Theatrhythm game much, much better. We'll see if they actually do or not. I'm down in concept. I actually like rhythm games. My biggest complaint with rhythm games is that they're usually for songs that I don't give a damn about. So that's one of the reasons I got into Theatrhythm. I was like, yeah, you know, it was fun. It was songs I knew, songs I liked, and I could enjoy myself. Oh yeah, one of the things Theatrhythm Full Curtain or whatever did that the base game didn't is you could do button presses instead of using the damn stylus, which by itself was a huge quality of life improvement, let me tell you right there. Either way, what I find most interesting is they're actually putting story in it, which on the one hand I'm in favor of, on the other hand I'm very wary of. I mean, we've already seen that they've put tons of story in their frickin' mobile game, which, you know. Either way. I guess that's it. Yep, nope, that's it. Let's talk about EA's conference. How many of you actually watched it? You'll notice I'm actually not raising my hand here. I have not watched the whole thing all the way through because I couldn't stomach it. It was an absolutely terrible conference, in my opinion. I was actually... I'll diverge for just a second here. I was thinking about, you know, because this is basically E3, right? You know, these little conferences they've been doing for the last couple of weeks and for the next couple of weeks are all the E3 equivalent, now that E3's been shut down for the moment. And I was thinking to myself, you know, because usually the question, and I have been asked this question, who's winning? Like, what's the best conference so far? Well, the answer's Sony. But, I mean, that, not to disparage Sony's conference, but most of the other conferences have been kind of crap. Zeron's low. In fact, I actually found myself thinking, we haven't even seen the Microsoft conference yet. And then I realized, with this weird, slowly dawning horror, that Microsoft actually did have a conference already. It was one of the first ones. And it was terrible. That was the one where they didn't show gameplay. You know, that's the thing a lot of people took away from that when they announced Valhalla. It's like, oh yeah, they did have a... Oh, wow. Anyways, so EA's conference was... Like, I should have actually written down every game they talked about, because it was something like 7 games. There's only 4 I paid any attention to. Excuse me, 5 I paid attention to whatsoever. But it was like this hour-and-a-half conference that was almost entirely just these guys talking, and not talking about anything that matters. Like, if they were talking to a developer and saying, you know, what went into this, how did you design this, what's your approach with this, how are you, you know, where are you going with the interface elements, where are you going with the gameplay flow, you know, actual questions, I would have been a little more okay with it. Instead, it's like, what is Star Wars to you? I mean, you really like Star Wars, right? When you were a kid, didn't you yeah, it was pure filler. It was a lot of empty text. And the whole time I'm sitting there going, okay. And I know that's ironic from coming from me, so without further ado, let's just jump into the actual games they talked about. First of all, let's start with the funniest part, shall we? BioWare! Okay, we're done. Now, the next thing I want to talk... No, okay, for real. They showed 3 images. I don't have them saved, because nobody cares. But they showed 3 pictures, which are basically implied to be from Dragon Age 4. It's not even confirmed. It's unless someone confirmed it off camera that I didn't see. It was just, here's stuff we're working on, and then there's just these 3 random shots of a vaguely fantasy-looking setting. The only thing that made me think it was Dragon Age was because you could see Red Lyrium in the 3rd one. And that's Dragon Age 4. That's the BioWare section. They also announced that they're making Skate 4, which I'd like to be excited about, but the problem is the announcement was basically, we're making Skate 4. No teaser of note, no trailer of note, no gameplay of note. It's years out. This was just the we are working on it kind of announcement, which I've said before and I'll say it again, I don't think should even be announced for the most part. So... Skate 4, Dragon Age 4, they're announcing... Now, hear me out. EA, guys, EA has decided to do something brand new and innovative. They're making a 3v3 multiplayer third-person shooter game. With arenas that can change. Dynamic arenas as you're playing through them. I can't make this up. I can't make this kind of stuff up. It's called Rocket Arena, and its big tagline is that it's got rockets in it, because we've never seen rockets in a team multiplayer arena game ever. Then they announced a pseudo indie game. I say pseudo because EA's backing it. Called It Takes Two, which is such a well-known game that you actually can't even find a page on it right now. I looked. It Takes Two. God, how do I put this? I don't want to sound unkind, but the trailer, the section dedicated to this game, gave a very brief concept of the premise, which is a girl makes these two dolls and they become magically alive and you play as the dolls. It's a two-player co-op. And then that's all I've got to tell you about the actual gameplay and premise, because the rest of the entirety of the showcasing was this guy jazzing about how it's the best thing since sliced bread, and it's freaking amazing, and it's going to blow your socks off. We've never seen gameplay before like this. And I know. I'm old and jaded and cynical and bitter, but I'm just looking at that like, okay. Like, you're going to need to buy me dinner, too. You know? Just, okay. Bread is a unique game, that's true. Bread is a unique game. You know, I don't want to sound cynical, but you didn't show me Jack. You showed me a bare bones premise, and then you had a guy talking about how it's amazing, and then you cut to another guy talking about how it's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best gameplay ever. It's going to blow your mind. So let's be honest. There's only one reason anybody who actually watched the EA conference did. And this is true for me, too. No, seriously, I actually forgot there was going to be other stuff at the EA conference. Star Wars Squadrons. Now let's just hammer this point down very quickly. Star Wars Squadrons it has a single-player campaign. It has a single or co-op mode arena skirmish thing, which I'll talk about in a minute, and it's got actual full team-based multiplayer. It costs $40 instead of the full $60. It includes features that are such as energy distribution between engines, weapons, and shields. You can shift your shields to fore and aft. There are 4 classes of ships. These include the fighter, the bomber, the interceptor, and the support. I'll talk more about that in a moment. It's coming out October 2nd. They have stated no microtransactions whatsoever. We'll see. As we've seen lately, the industry likes to twist words to not mean what they otherwise mean. Because after all, this game is totally a such and such console exclusive, which means it's only coming out on that console, but it's coming out on PC. So the story campaign is supposed to be relatively short. That's something that they've been honest about. The skirmish mode, let's talk about that. So the way this works is you've got 6 layers of the... Well, actually, no, 5. Hear me out for a second, I swear. So there are 5 parts of the battle arena, okay? You got the back end of both sides. These are the capital ships. You've got the front end of both sides. These are the support ships, the medium craft. And then you've got the center, which is just where straight dogfighting is happening. The initial thing starts off in the middle here. I know this is my middle finger. I'm not flipping you off, I swear. In the middle, you just dogfight. Whichever side wins gets to either push or fall back, depending on their choice. If they win, they'll push, and you decide to push, you push onto the next objective area. In these areas, your job is to take out the medium capital ships. And in the back area, your job is to take out the heavy capital ships. And in so doing, that's the goal. That's the win condition, is taking out the big ships. Here's the thing. It looks like a MOBA. I'm just going to say that. The skirmish thing looks like a MOBA. Because it's got the equivalent of lanes, and because it's got this whole thing where it's emphasizing something I haven't really talked about yet, and that's the classes, and another thing I haven't talked about at all, and that's gear. So the classes, I mentioned the 4 classes. For fighter, you have the TIE Fighter and the X-Wing, which that's a hell of a disparity. For bomber, you have the Y-Wing and the TIE Bomber. For interceptor, you have the TIE Interceptor and the A-Wing. And for support, you have the TIE Reaper and the U-Wing. Now, most of those are whatever. Most of those are exactly what you're picturing. TIE Fighter is the average. Fighter is the average. Bomber is the heavy, trying to hit capital ships thing. And Interceptor is exactly what it sounds like. It's quick, it's mobile, and it's there to intervene other ships. The support thing is what made me kind of go... Because the support class, in addition to having things like ion cannons and that kind of thing, they have buffs and heals. Now, on the face of it, I don't want to sound too derogatory towards that. But you can see why, between all the other things I've mentioned so far, that looks a lot like a MOBA format, right? Right? Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is the gear. I actually took a screenshot of all the gear, and I have since deleted it because I didn't actually need it. At least I think I deleted it. Yep, nope, I did delete it. I took several screenshots in order to kind of keep track of all this stuff. The gear, you know what, I can probably just pull this up really quick here, give me a second. But it's all this stuff that you can earn through the game. Don't worry, you don't have to buy it individually, you just earn it by playing the game, which to me sounds like you're going to have to get levels in the skirmish mode to unlock the gear. Give me just a moment. See if I can just find a quick and easy picture of this. Surely someone else in the universe has taken a picture of the gear like I did. That's a no. Okay. So I want to actually... You know what? Hang on. I know. Let's do this. Mute. Alright, gear. Where did they show the gear? Oh yeah, during the campaign, someone mentioned this and I didn't. You swap back and forth between the New Republic, which is actually just the Republic, and the Remnants of the Empire, which is just the Empire sides. Hello. This is the wrong trailer, isn't it? I need the other one. Here we go. Gameplay trailer. Surely that's it, right? There's the classes. Here it is. I found it. Components. That's the gear, right? Okay. So, we've got things like... Actually, let me go ahead and pull this over here. We've got things like, so this is the kind of stuff you can equip on your ship. Laser cannon, rotary cannon, burst cannon, rapid fire cannon, flash burst cannon, auto aim cannon, guided rotary cannon, guided quad cannon, ion cannon, concussion missile, turret mine, seeker mine, missiles, rockets, missiles, torpedoes, missiles, cluster missiles, torpedoes, bombs, beam cannon, not sure what to make of that one, repair droid, repair system, tractor beam, assault shield, mimic beacon, to fool with that, tactical shield, targeting jammer, beacon, supply droid, squadron mask, seeker warheads, chaff, sensor jammer, sensor inverter, reinforced hull, light hull, Lannister hull, dampener hull, deflector hull, reflect hull, deflector shield, resonant shield, nimble deflector, fortified deflector, ray shield, scrambler shield, conversion shield, overloaded shield, and then a whole bunch of drones, which include a a whole bunch of engines. God, that's hard to read. Which include a sublight engine, a propulsion engine, thrust engine, micro thrust engine, ion engine, and slam engine. So, gear. Gear is my terminology. They're calling it components. Now, for all my talk here, I am kind of looking forward to this. Really. Because it looks like it might actually be a decent game within the realm of what it is. Like, the campaign might be decent and enjoyable to play through, and it might be doing like one skirmish, maybe two. It sounds like they're trying to push the same envelope that every major company has been pushing for years at this point, which is multiplayer. And they're trying really hard to push the MOBA, and they're trying really hard to push the arena stuff. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, I'm just not that market. That's not me, so I can't even comment on that. But despite all my hesitance and despite all that, it looks better than we've seen in a long time. I know that's not high praise, but it is what it is. I want to add one other thing here, though, and this is just my personal opinion. Keeping in mind I haven't reviewed TIE Fighter yet. It's actually on the list. By memory, X-Wing, the game, the PC game, was pretty boring. And a lot of why was because even though the core elements of the game were fine, the missions were really copy-paste and frankly kind of dull. The reason I usually refer to my favorite Star Wars fighter game as TIE Fighter and not X-Wing or X-Wing versus TIE Fighter is because the mission design, in my opinion, was substantially superior in TIE Fighter. There was more variety, more things to do, more interesting stuff happening, more events, in-game kind of cutscene sort of things. They did more with it, basically. So if you're paying attention, the one thing that will really make me legitimately excited for Star Wars Squadrons will be the missions. The things we have no idea about. So we'll see. I will also admit the story campaign in TIE Fighter was, in my opinion, legitimately awesome, but that's neither here nor there. Up until the expansion, at which point things got a little different. Here's a missile boat. The thing that could have won the war by itself. God. Anyways. I enjoyed Wing Commander, yeah. Gelato. I don't actually remember a lot about it, if I'm being completely honest. I never really went back into that, but... Oh yeah, EA wins! EA is the winner. Really stretched the... The other problem, this is supposedly extra, extra large. This thing barely fits me. I actually can't close it. My chest is too big. This is a problem women have. I literally cannot close this thing. Like, if I stretched it... Ugh, there, I could barely... I get this thing closed. There we go. Just barely. I actually have tried. My other coat is much hotter than this, Nymph. Yeah, no kidding, Plutonia. Once I actually didn't use missile boats for the longest time. I was like, screw that, I'll take an actual fighter. And then I started actually learning how the missile boat worked, and it was just, oh my god, this thing is stupid. Anyways, I have tried the X-Wing TIE Fighter miniatures game. In fact, I played it in person, in addition to on Tabletop Sim. It's alright. Not actually all that engaging to me, personally. What's the theme of Mass Effect? Humans are special. I don't know. No, I didn't see any comments. I did have to ban a spammer, though, Mr. I'm not sure who it was. Let me double check my notes. I'm pretty sure that I'm done here, though. No, Baron. Haven't you? Whatever. So that's it. We're done.